Why do we believe what we believe? Why do we want to have religion?
Today, Elijah is meeting someone who he thinks can help LGBT people. For 15 years, Jim Marjoram ran a group trying to turn gay people straight.
Living Waters is, by normal definition, we'd say it's a reparative therapy organisation which pray away the gay.
Like Elijah, Jim joined an evangelical church as a teenager. For the next 40 years, he tried denying his sexuality.
I couldn't reconcile who I was with what I was supposed to be believing. So I went through dreadful stages of depression and suicide ideation, and to make it worse, I had to hide it. So I wasn't allowed to show that I was actually depressed.
After Jim's second wife died, he had a crisis of faith.
When she died, I said, okay, this doesn't work. Nothing about my life so far, in terms of religious stuff, has actually worked. My wife died despite every effort that we had, despite her faithfulness and her passion for her beliefs, and my passion for change, to be a straight person. It's not worked. Hi.
So Jim finally accepted he was gay. He now runs a group called Silent Gays for those still struggling with religion and their sexual orientation.
So at the moment, you as an LGBT person...
Most are too afraid to meet in public at this coffee shop, so Jim and Elijah decided to offer support online.
I've put together a website, online resources that provide all sorts of stuff for people, books, articles, videos, you name it. I've got a Facebook page. I've got a secret Facebook page that people can join that's totally secure, and people are free to share whatever they want on it.
They would come up and they would quote Leviticus and everything that to you and tell you that you're disgusting.
Part of Jim's motivation? To try to make up for the negative effects he may have had attempting to turn gay people straight.
I sort of hate to think how many people I negatively affected. I mean, I don't know the outcomes of most of them, because after the course you'd never see them again. And I think how I fared through all that, and I think, God, how on earth are they going? So yeah, it was definitely in that aspect of I need to input to try and counteract all this stuff.
Jim and Elijah counteract the effect of some religious beliefs on gay people through protest. LGBT people came to Brian Tamaki's church after Tamaki said sin, in particular gay sin, caused the Christchurch earthquake.
So yes, there was a group of people that organised a big gay disco, which was a lot of fun, and it was timed on a Sunday morning while there was a sermon going on.
Elijah wanted LGBT Christians who might be inside to know they're not alone.
You're born this way. Our sexual orientation, our gender identity is determined in the womb. There's no shame in that.
And so my faith today has now just gone through an increase and through the ceiling, Lord.
Bishop Brian Tamaki has never exclusively blamed gay people for the Christchurch earthquake, but in his sermon on November 13th, 2016, he blames sin, the city's high murder rate, and homosexuals. In fact, he uses the word gay or homosexual 14 times. He also blamed a member of the New Zealand government who helped bring gay marriage to the country. His name is Tim Barnett, and his former partner was an Anglican priest. Tamaki suggested that's the reason the Anglican cathedral was destroyed in the earthquake. Elijah's motivation to speak out? 5 months before Brian Tamaki talked about the Christchurch earthquake, his good friend Frank Smedley died.
He drank himself to death. He had made numerous suicide attempts and overdoses over the years leading up to when he passed in 2016. And the underlying factor every time was being unable to reconcile his faith with his sexuality.
But Frank isn't the only one buried here. This is also the grave of Kenneth Smedley.
His twin, who was also gay and also took his own life 11 years prior, So 2 sons in the family, both deeply ingrained in religion, both missionaries, both very, very powerful fundamental faith, both same-sex attracted, and both killed themselves.
Right around the world, in every country, people now are searching for answers.
But Peter Lynham doesn't think Brian Tamaki is using his sermon to condemn gay people. He's an expert on religion in New Zealand and the author of Destiny, The Life and Times of a Self-Made Apostle. The day after Tamaki talked about the Christchurch earthquake, Destiny Church posted an excerpt of his sermon on their Facebook page. They said he had predicted another earthquake. This is what happened near the town of Kaikoura, New Zealand.
The next day, or a day and a half later, when the earthquake happened, he suddenly rethought and actually reviewed in his mind what he had said. Suddenly, in his mind, he had predicted the earthquake. Indeed, God had told him to give this sermon. I think he just went for the big time. It must have been the Lord that was telling me to do this. It must have been God that spoke to my heart.
They thought they saw something.
Brian Tamaki wrote about his prediction in his blog a few days later. Peter thinks a bishop who has the power to predict earthquakes would be very appealing to his congregation and attract new believers.
Most of the big Pentecostal mega churches have placed branches in that area. So there's very, very strong competition in that world.
No matter who Tamaki was trying to sway, some say his recent sermon had an impact on New Zealand's gay community. Elijah does counseling at this LGBT Crisis Center. General Manager Trevor Easton says calls increased substantially after Tamaki's sermon.
There was a combination of him and Trump coming on stream and this wave of conservatism around the world, Brexit, etc., all that conservative and people being conscious of that conservatism, and it brings out all their anxieties.
Yeah, an exasperated mental illness, so anxiety and depression can increase. That would be the reason why the call numbers increased, is people are hearing things on the news, and especially if they've been raised in some kind of religion. Morning, ladies.
Elijah saw it too at this weekly transgender women's support group.
And then saying, I'm to blame for an earthquake. That's weird. And sometimes,
only one man
and sometimes quite, but it's not, no. This is the thing that gets to me. If it was just one man in a church, not a problem. I can deal with a man in a church. I can deal with the church. But there are a lot of people who agree. And a lot of those people are people I would have stood with in earlier days.
But is it because we are sinners? Because we are the gender different sinners because we're gay or we're lesbian, and they bring that in as well because their religion believes that's a sin.
My landlord is an American ex-soldier, and they go to the church that I used to go to. So it gets so tangled, and sometimes, most of the time, it's just okay, water off a duck's back. Occasionally, it just hurts.
In fact, according to recent US studies, religions with non-affirming beliefs about same-sex attraction and gender identity can have an effect. They lead to increased internalized homophobia and suicidal thoughts among gay, bi, and transgender members. Elijah has seen that damage firsthand. After Bishop Tamaki made comments about the Christchurch earthquake, a former member of Destiny Church came for counseling.
I do have a client who was raised in Destiny Church, came out lesbian and disowned by a father who's still very much involved in the church. You can't put words to that, can you? When your parent doesn't want to know you because you're different, that's not unconditional love.